up the lead. And Zanardi, with a terrible crash.
These are 4 horrific accidents that changed racing safety standards and nearly claimed the lives of these lucky drivers. Alex Zanardi was an Italian driver who became one of the most popular champions in American open-wheel racing. He had begun his career building homemade karts as a child in Bologna and worked his way up through Formula 3 and Formula 1 test programs in the early 1990s, though his first full F1 season in 1993 with Lotus was unsuccessful. Zanardi rebounded when he joined kart championship auto racing teams in 1996. Driving for Chip Ganassi's team, he was Rookie of the Year and then stormed to back-to-back kart championships in 1997 and 1998. The American Memorial 500 at the new Euro Speedway Lausitzring, also called the German 500, on September 15, 2001, was a long oval in Brandenburg, Germany. Zanardi led much of this race in his Reynard Honda, and on lap 143 of 154, he entered the pits with a comfortable lead. Upon exiting his pit stop with 12 laps remaining, Zanardi seemed to accelerate too early, lost control, and then swerved sideways across a grassy infield area and back to the asphalt into the path of Alex Tagliani's oncoming car. Tagliani's car then struck Zanardi's cockpit broadside at roughly 200 miles per hour.
Land and see what the story is for Kenny Brick.
And I would suspect you're going to have to run, Gary, because you're going to be in there fairly quickly.
Picks up the lead, and Zanardi, with a terrible crash.
Yellow is out.
The impact was horrible, effectively shearing the rear half of the monocoque off from the front. The race was immediately yellow flagged and run under caution to the finish. Zanardi was rushed by ambulance to a trauma center in Berlin, where doctors performed 3 hours of surgery to amputate both legs above the knees. He also had a fractured pelvis and a moderately severe concussion. Zanardi survived the crash, but it ended his top-level open-wheel career, yet it also marked the beginning of a remarkable second chapter in his life. After months of rehabilitation, he returned to competition as soon as possible. By 2003, just 2 years after the accident, Zanardi was back behind the wheel in the European Touring Car Championship, or ETCC, driving an adapted BMW where all controls are by hand. Not just that, Zanardi also embraced hand cycling. He trained hard for the Paralympic Games, winning 2 gold medals in London 2012 and then 2 gold and a silver in Rio 2016.
Niki Lauda.
That one is for Niki.
Niki Lauda.
Niki Lauda.
Niki Lauda was one of Formula One's dominant figures. He had parlayed family-loaned funds into a racing career, and by 1974 joined Scuderia Ferrari. In 1975, he drove the Ferrari 312T to 5 Grand Prix victories and clinched the World Championship. Lauda was celebrated for his cool, analytical driving style and was expected to repeat as champion in 1976. However, long before the accident, Lauda had voiced serious concerns about safety at the Nürburgring's infamous Nordschleife circuit. The 14.2-mile Green Hell was notoriously treacherous. It was narrow, fast, and unsighted in parts, with minimal runoff and huge elevation changes. Lauda and others, including Jackie Stewart, argued it was impossible to bring such a track up to modern safety standards. He even nearly organized a driver boycott, though the other drivers voted to race. Nevertheless, the 1976 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring was on the calendar, planned to be the last such race ever held there. On August 1, 1976, racing conditions were mixed, rain at times, dry on other sections. Most drivers started on wet tires, pitting for slicks after 1 lap. Lauda himself pitted after lap 1 and rejoined with slick tires on a drying track. On the 2nd lap, he accelerated into the Bergwerk section, a fast, downhill sweep, when his Ferrari snapped to the right due to rear suspension failure, sending him into an embankment and then back onto the track, where the car burst into flames, with his helmet dislodged, exposing his face. other drivers and a marshal battled the flames using a fire extinguisher. Lauda wore a flame-retardant suit, but it was not yet as advanced as modern gear. His injuries were near fatal. He had first to third-degree burns over his head and face, and his wrists were burned from gripping the steering wheel. He also suffered several broken ribs and lung damage from inhaling hot, toxic fumes. With all of that, the legend refused to give up. Only 42 days after the crash, he stunned the world by returning to race at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Weak and still bandaged, he finished an astonishing fourth. Lauda himself joked that losing half an ear was a minor inconvenience. In 1977, he rebounded by winning the World Championship again and won a third championship in 1984 after a business retirement. Niki Lauda passed away in 2019 at age 70, mourned as a three-time champion and an icon of courage. After his crash, F1 switched the German GP to the shorter Hockenheimring, and the Nordschleife was never used again in F1. Ryan Newman was a 42-year-old racer and already a NASCAR fixture long before the 2020 Daytona 500. Nicknamed the Rocket Man, he built a 21-year Cup Series career with 18 wins, 51 poles, and major victories at Daytona and Indianapolis. By the start of the 2020 season, Newman was driving the number 6 Ford for Roush Fenway Racing and was still a legitimate championship threat. On the second overtime and last lap of the Daytona 500, Newman led the race through turns 3 and 4 as Ryan Blaney and the pack closed in behind him. A bump from Blaney exiting the corner unsettled Newman's car, sending it hard into the outside wall. As the car rebounded, Corey LaJoie struck Newman squarely on the driver's side at nearly 200 miles per hour. The impact launched the car into the air, flipping it multiple times before it landed and slid across the finish line upside down.
Turn 4 for the final time. Blaney to the outside, to the inside. Here comes Hamlin up the outside. Crash into the wall, into the air. Goes Newman. Upside down. And a shower of sparks on his roof.
The roof and roll cage were heavily damaged, and Newman's helmet was visibly cracked. Safety crews worked for roughly 15 minutes to cut Newman free before rushing him to the hospital with a brain injury and multiple fractures, where he was placed in a medically induced coma. Engineers noted the eerie similarity to Dale Earnhardt's fatal 2001 Daytona crash, but this time the safer barriers, reinforced roll cage, improved restraints, hands device, roof flaps, and helmet technology increased the survivability. 2 days later, against every visual expectation, he walked out of the hospital. Newman returned to racing just months later, though the momentum of his career never fully recovered. He completed the shortened 2020 season, raced again in 2021, and then stepped away from full-time Cup competition. Since 2023, Newman competes in the modified car racing and won some races. Johnny Herbert was a 24-year-old driver and one of Britain's brightest racing prospects by the late 1980s, rising fast through the junior ranks with a British Formula 3 title in 1987 and an immediate impact in International Formula 3000. Driving for Eddie Jordan's team in a Reynard Ford Cosworth sponsored by Camel, he won on his F3000 debut at Jerez in 1988 and looked destined for Formula 1. On August 21, 1988, the Brands Hatch F3000 race had barely restarted after a red flag. Running in third position, Herbert was hit under braking by Gregor Foytek as they raced towards the Pilgrim's Drop, sending his car sideways and nose first into the concrete wall at high speed. The first impact tore the entire front of the car apart, exposing Herbert's legs. The car then ricocheted across the track and slammed head-on into the opposite Armco barrier, where his unprotected legs bore the full force of the secondary impact.
Straight, close together, and there's a tremendous accident. Herbert, Wojciech, Briard, and so many cars, I cannot see just how many people are involved in that, but it is virtually the whole of the field behind the first three. A huge impact there with...
The injuries were horrific. Both of Herbert's feet and ankles were crushed. Amputation was briefly considered, and doctors warned he might never walk again. He remained conscious, convinced he had lost his legs, while rescue crews spent around 15 minutes freeing him before he was airlifted for emergency surgery. Yet less than a year later, still in pain and with permanently impaired braking ability, Herbert made his Formula One debut for Benetton and finished fourth. He went on to win 3 F1 Grand Prix and endurance classics, though he never fully recovered his pre-crash physical capability. The accident also fed into growing concerns about lower leg protection and cockpit safety, contributing to stronger crash structures and improved footwell design in later generations of single-seaters.